Welcome to the Whitetail Legacy Podcast.
And we get the back view of him, and I mean, it's just a mega.
52 yards is a long shot. Magnum PI, what we named him. No idea.
Just a magnum.
Yeah, just a magnum.
Come on, Cam, last year we said probably 150, mid 150.
Yeah.
Same doe from the morning come out with that 9-pointer.
Here steps out this 90-inch 8-pointer. You're like,
I'm like, okay, well, there's still a buck back there grunting.
Yeah.
And then out steps like another 90-inch 8-pointer. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm like, deer, right there.
Yeah, like
and he's already
yards.
30 yards.
Yeah.
He was literally 5 yards from the base of the tree. Could have been, had a buck down at 1:40 in the afternoon, back there deep on public. 3 does come out pretty early. It was like 245, 24-yard shot, sent to combat veteran, and I tell you what, man, dude, it just smoked. We always get so jacked up when the other person kills. It's just almost like we got it done.
Yeah. And when you killed that doe, I was like, hell yeah, man.
And we come down here to Missouri.
I asked Comey one more time. I'm like, is it a good buck? And he goes, yeah, real good, solid buck. I'm like, all right, boom. And the deer just drops. Sure. Super special meat.
Whitetail Legacy Podcast, bringing you back to the hunt and leaving a legacy. Baller Rut.
Welcome to the Whitetail Legacy Podcast, still coming in your ear holes and bringing some hardcore deer tactics to you. We got Justin Hollandsworth on, a legend. I think he is. I mean, dude's killing multiple bucks. October, 2 weeks into season, he's already got a slammer down all the time. And if he ain't getting it done then, he's coming back late season, killing him in the rut, killing him in multiple different states, all bow kills, getting him close, hunting beds, hunting all different types, and getting it done just repeatedly. So
that's a legend.
Yeah, we break down kind of a little bit of what he's looking for this time of year out there, but then we broke down his bread and butter, that MRI, that most recent information, and we are going to have him back on closer to season and really dive deep into the mobile trail cams and get an episode out there, really fire you up about that. But we'll get into the people that make this possible. We'll get into the show. Homie, hit him with the suicide prevention hotline.
Yeah, guys, it's going to be 1-800-273-8255. And like I said, I just want to give a small shout-out to Katie Babs. She is the lady or the radio host that I heard say this on the radio show that I listened to. So, huge respect for her trying to raise awareness. And I was like, this is something that we should do because she's totally right. She says, people are out there that need to help and need to talk to somebody. And, you might just be the gateway to somebody getting help. So, always be out there looking and try to help somebody out if you see the opportunity to.
For sure. And another thing I want to shout out, Illinois, right? If you're in Illinois right now, they got a 2,000 burpee challenge going on in March here. It's a suicide prevention just for veterans. So if you can look them up on Facebook, I joined up. I've been doing like 50 a day. And dude, that's pretty. I've never done a lot of burpees. It's more than I thought.
Yeah.
It's like 67 a day I got to do. So
right.
It won't be too bad.
It starts in March?
Yeah, it starts in March. So if anyone of the listeners, there's a lot of people you can donate to, or you could do it yourself if you want to get some motivation. I just knew that, like, if I did it for veterans, I would have to. You got to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, there's no way you can't do it. So that was like almost like a mind trick that I did on myself.
There you go.
Doing at least like 70 burpees every day now.
Yeah.
For March, but you got Exodus trail cameras.
Yeah. I just want to let you guys know I still have my render out running.
Dude, the temp on that the other day was -21.
Was it?
Yeah, I was like, damn.
Still solid, though.
Still solid. I'm like,
still solid.
That thing is frozen.
So this is my first. This is our first year having a render and running it in the coldest time of the year. So,
and we also have a Lift 2 on video mode out there. So I'm interested to see.
Yeah.
Kind of how it performs.
Exactly. So, when you have a warranty that Exodus puts with their cameras, you can do stuff like this.
Yeah, you can do dumb stuff.
So add some of these into your fleet and be able to get the cameras out there. Like now we're looking for, are these bucks shedding? Instead of just going out there aimlessly walking when 90% of your deer are still holding. So,
Bro, we need to get a mobile where I walk today. Because that shit was
I tried to
legendary.
envision where you were at, but
you know exactly where I was at.
I couldn't.
I'll
I
tell
couldn't,
you when we
I
get
couldn't
off
pick
the
it
air,
up.
Did you see that?
Yeah,
That was insane. I never seen that much. So we got like a foot of snow, and like there was where they're digging down, like it was like 75 yards wide and like 1,000 yards long.
It was long as shit.
Yeah, insane. It was like there wasn't a spot where there wasn't a deer track, and 75 yards wide. It was insane. But
so we need to get a camera that you can get from ExodusOutdoorGear.com and put it right there.
yeah, and they hit a scrape.
There's a scrape opened
There's
up.
a scrape opened up with pee in the snow.
Solid.
Right? Remember where I had the scrape where we got Pickle?
Oh,
So
yeah.
we're on Pickle's territory where I
Okay.
got him on the scrape walking by, that cedar tree scrape.
Uh-huh.
Scrapes hit, pee in the scrape. I'm like, what? I don't know shit about whitetails.
So
it's
that trail is going
north and south
north and south.
along that field.
What?
But you know where we walk through the corn?
Uh-huh.
It's all gone now. You know what I mean? They chop it down.
Yeah.
But hella crows over there. So there's hella corn over there, but I didn't walk that.
So you know that's getting smoked.
Yeah, you know that's getting smoked. So definitely potential. I was trying to get a workout in and pick up the kids and,
Right.
and sneak it in. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I walked it and I was like, damn, that's a long ways from the bottom parking lot where we parked to go in and all the way to the top where we parked to go in for the hunts
In November.
on the north. Yeah. I walked that whole stretch and back in the snow.
Oh god. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's
The
like
very north. Oh, okay.
That's
I
like
got
a
you.
mile, probably.
Yeah.
It was a mile and a half on my
And then
phone.
back.
And pacing on Pacer, it was a mile and a half.
Shit.
So, yeah.
That's a good rip.
Yeah. All right. Next level. I cannot wait to give Nate a hug. This
I know.
is sweet.
I'll probably try to hug Scott, but I'll go right over his head.
Yeah. You gonna read the ad or?
You started it, so I was like, oh, I just let him go. We're back in studio, guys.
Yeah, we're back in studio. It's a mess.
So back to day one, basically.
Day one.
Next level, guys. Just like Cody was saying there, we're finally gonna get to meet these guys. They're gonna be at the Iowa Deer Classic. We're gonna be there at the booth with them Saturday. Their booth numbers 111 and 113. They got the big square off there.
Yeah.
So it's going to be the first weekend of March. Everybody knows it. So stop by, check them guys out, and they're a ton of fun.
Yeah,
They
we'll
are
be
a
up
ton of
there that Saturday hanging out. So
If you just want some overall basic knowledge of deer nutrition and bioavailability, vasodilators, all that,
yeah,
Nate and Scott are your guys to talk to.
go check them out. Last Breath TV. You know what I was thinking before we get into Last Breath? The people that are watching this, that noise, they're all gonna know what it is now. I did it like 8 times. I
can't wait to show my mic.
I did like 8 times last episode on accident because this mic kept going like that.
Yeah.
So the people listening are probably like, "What is that noise?" And now they all know it's rubbing through my beard. All right. That Last Breath TV. Yeah. go
Yeah.
ahead.
So, as we said in last week's episode, that they were going to be starting a new series called Shed Kings. We got to watch that first episode of Garrett. He was talking about a shed that was from a 203-inch
Mag.
buck,
Just a
and then the
mag.
following year was 205 when he got shot.
Yeah.
So that is a badass shed.
Yeah. Super epic.
They went through scoring it, talk about where he found it, and pretty cool deal. I
They
can't
did
wait.
a really good job. On
Yeah,
that,
I can't wait for more of these episodes, and they're going to be
intro
releasing
voice.
them.
Freaking crushed it.
Yeah, I was actually going to message him today about that.
Yeah.
So going to be releasing these on Thursday nights at 7 on their YouTube channel, so be able to head over there and get it hot off the press.
Yeah. If you guys are excited for shed hunting, this is something that this awesome idea. I don't think it's ever been done.
No, I don't think so.
Talking about where you find these giant sheds, and it's gonna be cool if there's some, coalitions that come together out of this.
Yeah, he found that in an open cornfield.
Yeah, and then some dude's like, "Oh man, I need to go check this spot."
Oh
'cause
yeah, everybody's got a spot, you know, like yeah.
And then boom, there, I ain't checked this spot, but that one guy on Shed Kings,
Mm-hmm.
and then boom, they freaking they find a giant. How legendary that be? But
Yeah.
you got to check that on YouTube. A lot more, episodes coming from that. I don't know how many they plan on doing, but hopefully they do quite a
It
few.
sounded like when we were up there with them, it sounded like
Yeah.
they had a shit ton.
So, and make sure and check out their podcast, the Huntcast, on Monday morning. Always coming out. They do the Hunterversies, Hunterversies. Definitely a good topic. I actually thought of one today that they need to cover, or we need to do a podcast about it. I think it'd be good for the listeners, but can't give it away. All right, what do we got? Underwarmer. Guys, the weather is finally starting to break just a touch here, but having this, the guys out there ice fishing or anything like that would be awesome. I'm so tired of being cold, it's not even funny.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I really need it? I need it like the first 30 minutes when I get in my car and drive to work.
yeah, you ain't got that remote.
Yeah, I don't got the remote start, so definitely would be nice.
That's a nice sound effect you did there. Fade in, fade out.
Yeah. My mic keeps rolling on me. I got to get the screwdriver out and do some maintenance. But Underwarmer, you can check them out at underwarmer.com. Basically, it is a fitted shirt with hand warmers in it. Going to keep your core temperature up. Not going to burn you, which is good. That's something I was worried about when I tried it. I just wore it with like a T-shirt and then so worked out pretty good. And hearing a lot of good things about other guys on Last Breath that have them and trying them out.
Mm-hmm.
And been around for a long time. So be excited. Just another product that I didn't know existed until it gets out there. So hopefully one of our listeners can take some value to it. So, all right, that's it, right?
That is it.
All right, let's get into the show. It's a good one. All right, guys, we got Justin Hollandsworth on the line. How you doing tonight, man?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing great. Appreciate you coming on, spending some time with us. We've chatted quite a bit. It's nice to finally, see you in person and get to chat a little bit more than a text message or Instagram message.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you guys having me on. I know this has been long overdue. We've been chatting. This is like probably 3-4 months in the making.
We both got COVID on different times.
Yeah.
You're like, I can't do it because I got COVID. And then a month later, I'm like, I can't do it because I got COVID. So definitely flip-flop back and forth there. But I know a lot of our listeners know who you are, but just do a brief introduction of who you are and your hunting history. I mean, you can see your wall behind you. You got a lot of racks back there to be proud of.
Justin Hollandsworth, and I've been probably like you guys. I've been hunting ever since I was a kid, but I never got real serious until probably my mid-20s or so into bow hunting. Just because I failed a lot at it early on and didn't have things figured out, but I think I probably killed my first Pope and Young around, I don't know, probably 25, 26. It took me a little while. But I just bow hunt. And probably, as of right now, I think I've killed around 21, 22 gross Pope and Young deer with my bow. I don't gun hunt. I don't have anything against gun hunters. It's just doesn't trip my trigger, so to speak. I like that 15, 20 yards and getting up close and personal and I help out with a show called Whitetail Addictions. I'm a co-producer of that. And I run our staff for Whitetail Addictions, and I also run staff for Lone Wolf Custom Gear. I've been friends with the DeQuistos for probably pushing 20 years now. And so a lot of my style of hunting is the way that Andre and now Cody have been hunting for years. So, I love the sport. I don't know what I would do without whitetail bow hunting in my life. When we started Whitetail Addictions, that I fit right into that because I'm freaking addicted to whitetails. I just love them.
Yeah, we were saying that this the other day on the way home. Like, if we didn't have whitetails and families, like, I don't know what, there would be absolutely nothing that would. I'd have to get.
I wouldn't be who I am
I have to
today.
get a race car or something dumb.
Yeah.
You have to do something with your time. And they're like, you
Yeah.
can't hunt. I'd be like, I guess a Z71 Camaro is going to be in my garage. I'm finally going to be able to wear that denim jacket with some pride.
Yes.
But we want to have you on for MRI, most recent information. That is like, your go-to how you hunt. But
Yep.
being the time of year, a lot of people want to hear about, some late season or some, scouting in this time of year for next year. So we'll just touch briefly on that, what you do, and then we'll get into the MRI and how you break down these bucks.
So this time of year, season's out, and a lot of our deer they're still, packing their horns. Plus, we got a bunch of snow on the ground right now. I enjoy getting out shed hunting, but this time of year, typically for me, for the next couple months is a lot of the time that I work on trying to get access to new properties, because it's the winter months. There's a lot of people not going out and about. They're staying home. COVID's made that a little difficult too. You throw that in there. People are a little more, hesitant to want to come and talk to you or whatever, or let you in or whatever. I would say one of the things I probably try to do to gain access the most is maybe work an angle of maybe, I know somebody else that knows these people, or, you gotta, with the crazy world that we live in, you gotta gain a trust with the landowner to, even consider the idea of letting you, hunt their property. There might be a couple years or so of me just kind of stopping by, and maybe I ask for permission to maybe run a camera, or maybe just to poke around and do a little shed hunt. Not ask for permission to hunt at all, really, not the bow hunt, because sometimes people can get a little funny. Maybe they've had bad experiences before with other guys that used to hunt their ground or whatever. But this time of year, that's really important to me. To get out and start to walk around, whether it's ground that I already have access to or that I'm trying to get access to. Don't get me wrong, I soak in, the beat down trails and the rubs and those types of things. And, and a shed's just kind of like, just a little prize, I guess, if you find one. But I don't put a lot of stock in. If I find a big shed, that's awesome. The one to the collection or whatever. But man, I found some big sheds thinking, oh God, this is the year I'm going to be in there and all over this deer, and never see the deer again. And, so I don't put a ton of stock in that. I just experienced that last year on a deer, found huge set. I was all over this deer for 2 years and was all jacked up to hunting this year, and he never showed back up. Nothing, not one picture, nothing. And so, for me, it's more about just walking and learning the terrain, to try to figure out maybe what the wind might do in a certain spot, whether it might eddy in an inside corner or, into, kind of a, where two ridges meet, or just try to, maybe, think about how thermals might work in a certain spot or something like that, just to have in the back of my head for later on. But I don't get too wrapped up in the postseason scouting, as a lot of guys do. I just trying to learn the terrain more than anything.
That's something that I kind of want to touch base on, is that you brought up, is about the wind doing something in a certain area. Last year in the area that we were hunting Magnum, we had a south wind there, but it would come sweeping more westerly than it would be more south. There's giant cliff there. Just a terrain feature that has the wind, diverging a different way than you would think from what it says. And then also in the area that you killed Freeze in, it was always like a southeast or a southwest.
Yeah, no matter what
it was,
no matter
it was
what the
always coming
wind, it
through
was
there.
always coming southeast where I killed him.
So,
yeah.
I mean, there's two absolute megas that have been in an area where the wind's doing something different than what you would normally think it would be. So that's something that we need to do better about, is being mindful of when we do go out and scout or shed hunt or whatever. Just take a second, look at what the wind says on the Weather Channel or whatever you use, and note what it's doing in that area that you could potentially hunt.
Yeah, because we went in there on him, and
we're like,
we can't set up here at all because it's ruined. We actually bumped does, and we were like, they blew at us, and they were like 200 yards away, and there's no way. And then we were like, oh, the wind's blowing right at them. So.
Well, and there's so many good apps out there now too, to where you can mark a spot and then put notes in there.
Yeah.
And then as season goes on, and maybe you're playing the game with a particular deer, and then you're like, you know what, maybe I should slip back in there, and then you can pull that out on your phone and just kind of go through your notes, and you're like, oh yeah, you know what, that's what this was doing when it was blowing southeast in there. Well, it was kind of curling back around and doing this or whatever, and I think it's kind of touchy though, because sometimes you go in there, like you'll go in there postseason, there's no foliage on, so it might do it then. But then when you go in there to hunt, you just got to kind of test it, and either you take the chance or you don't. And I think that right there was like a changing point in my hunting, is when I just quit overthinking things sometimes, as far as like going into something and just like doing this whole head game thing with yourself and thinking, I don't want to take a chance in this. If I bump him, and like, and you just gotta, if you don't take some chances, you're not going to kill some big deer. That's just all there is to it.
That's me 100%. Yeah. I'm getting better, but man, when you get on the lease like I had, and you just got it figured out, and you're like, okay, if I set in this area, I might move stands a little bit, but if I'm in this area, eventually something's going to come. But when you're on a public piece or something new, you can't just bank on, be like, oh yeah, this is it, because someone might be hunting 100 yards away from you the last 3 days and you had no idea. So I got to get better on there of just saying, all right, screw it. The wind isn't 100. We're going to hunt it anyways.
Yeah, and another thing to think about is, like, if you're looking at pictures and you're looking at the wind and the speed and all of that, if, the deer's showing up on, like, just say an east wind, and you're like, well, there's no way I can hunt there on an east wind. But if that wind's doing something different there, and that's the only time he's there, then an east wind's when you need to be there, and you'll be golden. But when actually in reality, you think you need a west or a northwest, But if it's doing something funky there, that's a time you can come in and hopefully strike.
Yeah, we had.
Well,
go ahead.
And I've said this on, I've talked about this before in other podcasts or whatever, but I've always said too that you got to get on sometimes and hunt that. Just get on that edge wind, just where you're basically flirting with disaster. That's what I've always referred it to, because I've had it work for me, and I've had it become a complete freaking disaster too, and got busted, by the deer I was after or other deer that just forced that deer that I was after to not see. But when you can figure out that fine line of where you're giving him something comfortable enough to move into that spot during daylight hours, but you're just off of the edge. When you can find some sweet spots like that, man, it's like taking candy from the baby, because they're just, they stroll in there like they don't have a care in the world. And you're sitting there waiting for them. Yeah.
I've had actually some pretty good success hunting on that quartering wind, really, really pushing the envelope in the rut when the time's right to kind of be more aggressive. And just like you said, it can pay off huge.
But I use that wind probably in early season more than I do anything. That's when, to me, that's my bread and butter. the first 2 weeks of season.
We were just talking about, having you on, and to have a buck down that early, you're just like, yes. And I've been there twice in the last 6 years, and you're just like, man, we're a 2-buck state, so you got a solid one down. You're like, yes, this is really nice. And and then the last 3-4 years, we've really struggled to get on bucks. This year, we were so this is the year of close calls, because we were I missed one by 25 minutes. You missed one by 150 yards. I mean, we were just right there. And then the encounters we had
that buck on that scrape, and then the next night we lost the property.
Yeah, we lost our main lease. We had a buck hitting a scrape every night.
Stupid.
Real a 150, mid 150 class 10-pointer, giant brows. Beautiful, high, tight rack. And we were literally
all right, tomorrow's a cold front.
Tomorrow's
We're
a
gonna go
cold front. First cold front. We know exactly where this deer bedding. He's doing the same in and out path every freaking night about 25 minutes after dark.
Yeah.
Let's go. And then the day I went out there to pull a cam way north of there to see if anything was funky, we got kicked off. He was getting ready to go hunt that night, and then we got kicked off the piece. But it's just
that's painful. Ooh.
That was like a 180-acre gem of
late season goodness.
Goose hunters and farmers. Goose hunters will get you every time around here, man. I got too many goose.
Really?
Nothing against goose hunters, but you guys are savages on the land. I tell you that right now. You guys out there scooping it up. So, but all right. So let's get into the main bread and butter of why I wanted to have you on. So you're the king, in my opinion, of early October killing off of the most recent information. Getting the mobile picks and going in there and getting it done. So kind of break down your strategy of how you go about it. And then once you kind of get to where you feel you've covered it good enough, kind of go ahead and share a story where it's all come together and you've got it done.
Okay. So for me, I get really serious with, I love trail cameras. I know some guys, they don't like them, whatever. Some guys like to sell cams, and I do. I love to sell cams just because I'm just a busy dude, got a family and work a lot, and I just always have a lot of things going on. So I try to get out in June, get some cameras set up. I probably got, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 different spots that I hunt here. And then I have a lease with some guys out in Illinois. And so I like to get out, get these cameras set, and then just basically acquire my targets. Okay, these are my – and I don't – now, if I had like a 180 or 200 kind of class deer or something like that, yeah, maybe I would say, okay, that's the one deer that I'm hunting. Because here in Ohio, it's a 1-buck state.
Yeah.
So – once you get one down, I mean, that's it. You're done. So I usually try to get 2 or 3 that I'm interested in, and then I just keep tabs on them throughout the whole summer. And I basically, as it gets closer to that time that they're going to, as one of my friends calls it, once they rub the dumb off, meaning rub the velvet off, because it's like they're I know he said it one time, and I was like, dude, I love that. I know everybody said that before. And so I'm not taking credit to that, but that's his saying, and he's been saying it for years. But once they rub that dumb off, they become a completely different animal. Sometimes they disappear. Sometimes they move out of that spot and move back into whatever other core area they got or whatever. So I'm just trying to figure out, okay, who's staying around? Who do I actually have a legit chance of getting a crack at? Because to me, I go at it hard right off the get-go. And last year I had 3 good bucks that I knew of, and that's what I was going to go after. And I had one particular deer that I'd passed him up last year, and I passed him up it was like the first week of season last year, and I passed him up on video. And I remember I sent the video to Heath that night, and I said, I don't know, maybe I screwed up. He's a pretty good one. I said, check this out. He goes, nah. He goes, I think you did the right thing. So I was like, okay. And I thought he was probably right around 160. And I picked up his shed during shed season, and he was like, he would have been right around 158, 157, 158, somewhere around there. So I just figured he was going to blow up. And this year, I had a plot over there, and basically the only reason I had this plot was just for this deer. I mean, that was the whole reason. And I was just waiting for particular wind to hunt that deer out of. And he just got, the other two were just kind of real nocturnal. I wasn't, I'd get a picture here and there of them, and they just weren't real active. And I'm just not one to just sit around and say, well, I'll just wait on them to get active when I passed up an opportunity over here to kill a really good deer, So that's what I did. I just waited till he got red hot in there, based off those, that MRI, that information I was getting from those cameras. And I went in there the very first night and shot that buck when he got hot in there. But, a lot of times in that early season, I'll sit back and I'll try to wait a little bit for some things that develop on the cameras. But I also try to get maybe, like a certain wind in my favor. And I'm a big believer in the moon. And if I can get like those 4 or 5 days leading into that full moon for an evening hunt, because I definitely prefer to hunt evenings in the early season, just because of the just getting in and out and stuff like that, and just bumping them or whatever. But I've killed I've killed some good ones too in the morning and early season. But that's just because I was tight up against their bed. But and that deer I could see this whole thing starting to develop, and he was getting earlier on that plot because that moon was forcing him to do that. And I just felt like, okay, now's the time. And I went in there and shot him the first night, and he was like the low 170s, just a nice big clean 10.
Nice. I really like the idea, and this is, I think, something that we really fail on is we kind of get suckered into going after maybe one area where we know there's a lot of deer and 2 or 3 shooters. We put all of our baskets in there, or all of our eggs in that basket, and there's one giant in there we're after, but there's also 2 or 3 solid bucks we'd kill. But with you're on 8 or 9 different pieces, and you're trying to pick 2 or 3, 4 different bucks, and then you're waiting for them to show you something. I feel like our mobile cams are all kind of in the same area, besides the one we run on private, you know what I mean? And we don't expect to get some new buck to do something completely off the wall. We kind of know what the bucks are there, but if you had 3 or 4, 5, 6 places you can hunt, spread your cameras out, and you can, this buck over here is flirting with danger, and these guys over here that you want to hunt potentially aren't really working. I mean,
Well, I think our mobiles were pretty spaced out at the beginning of last year.
In the summer, they were, but season.
Well, then when we lost that,
we lost the piece, so we pulled.
Yeah,
we pulled that, but there was 2. We run 7 mobiles.
Yeah.
So 7 mobiles, and I wish we had 15 of them. To be honest with you, we had 2, right, and then we had 4, and then we're like 7 would be plenty.
7, yeah.
Nope.
You get 7, you're like, wish I had 12.
Yeah.
You get 12, you're like, 20 don't sound bad.
And then you're like, the mobile data pan, you're like, this is more expensive than my phone bill. It's getting up there, but I like that idea of having a bunch of targets.
Well, and I always look at it like this too. Like the perfect situation to me is I hate when, I'll be honest, I hate when I got 3 shooters on one place. Like, yeah, you think, okay, that's increases your odds or whatever, but I would rather just have I'd rather have one on 3 different places.
Yeah.
So I could mix it up and not, okay, I can go over there and maybe the steer's hot right now. And maybe I hunted him for a little bit. And then maybe he's, now all of a sudden he's cooled down because maybe I tipped my hat to him or whatever. Then I can slide in and get off of him for a little bit, maybe get on another one and hunt him a little bit too. And then that way, it gives me an opportunity just not to burn up all those places and just kind of bounce around until, until I get the situation that, that I'm really, really looking for. I did that a couple years ago. I was on a deer that I went in and hunted the deer, hunted him 2 days in a row. And I seen him the first night, and I had a doe and 2 fawns come, they want to come right underneath me and hang out. The doe got, spooked, and she took off. He didn't like it and he left. And I came back in there the very next night, and I needed an east wind to go in there to hunt that deer. And he was like, it was almost like, because of what happened the night before, I could tell he just didn't feel comfortable, like coming over to where in that area where I was at. And I didn't have a lot of room to roam because it was just a really small, 5-acre piece.
Yeah.
So I didn't have, a whole lot of options to do much bouncing to be able to get in position. And then but at that same time, another deer on another farm, he started kind of just every day was getting a little bit earlier. And I got a good win. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go in there and hunt. I'm not, I can get out of there. Even if he comes out, I can still get out of there clean because of the access and the wind that I have in that place. And I went over there and then ended up killing that deer. So then I never hunted that deer, the other one that I was after again and then the following year I went back in and then I killed him the following year.
Seems like it's kind of a going thing where a guy either has one giant piece or 8 smaller pieces. And that's the guys that are successful. There's either one guy who has one mega piece that he works on, or there's the guys that have, 8 or 9 pieces that are smaller and they can bounce around and zigzag. And that's what we used to have, but we just keep losing. Keep losing stuff, and this year we're getting something. I don't care if it's a ditch somewhere with, if it's 3 trees in a pond. Yeah, I'll hunt it. I'll check it out. Let me put a camera out there.
See what we got.
You know what? I'll tell you this. If somebody's willing to give me access to a piece, I'm at least running the camera on it.
Yeah.
Because I've been down this. I had a neighbor a few years back, not a hunter. His dad had a small piece over there, and he was like, "Man, my dad's got all kinds of deer back there, and this and that or whatever." And I was chasing some other deer, and he goes, "Man, I'd like to put a camera back there." I was like, "Well, here's take one of my cameras," and I said, "Set it back there," and he's like, "Okay," and he sets it back there, and I got busy hunting throughout the year and just basically completely forgot about it. And then he says to me, he goes, "Hey, I took that camera down." He goes, there were some pretty good bucks on there. And I said, "Oh, okay, yeah." And so he gives me back the camera, and I open this thing up and look at it. There's like a 220-inch freaking monster on it. I mean, giant.
That's a pretty good deer back there. Yeah.
I mean, I shit when I opened up that and I walked right back over there. I said, "Man, you didn't tell me that kind of deer was in there." He's like, "Well, yeah, I'm not a hunter, man. I don't know."
Yeah.
He's like, "It looks huge to me." But he's like, "I see the bucks that you bring home and they look pretty big to me." I'm like, "I'm not killing stuff like that, man."
Yeah. There's always that buffer. You're like, I don't know. You always hear the old lady be like, "Oh, I seen a big one down the road. Had one of those tines that goes down." And I'm like, this is so rare of a trait. Yeah. I hear it all the time. You're like, do I believe this guy? But probably 90% of the time, they actually did see something giant back there. And we're just like, "Lady, that's a ditch with 2 locust trees in it." There ain't nothing out there, but
you got to use those leads.
Yeah.
It's worth looking into.
Yeah, it's worth just taking a peek for sure. So we got a lot of leads this year.
I've been down that road of like, oh man, I got a huge buck been hanging out. And yeah, you can hunt anytime you want. You go over there and, it's like 100-inch deer.
Yeah,
man.
basket 8.
Like, and I don't say that to him or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, he's a nice buck, but I just, never go over there to hunt him or whatever. But I've also heard those stories before where guys are like, man, there's a giant buck been hanging out behind the house, this and that. And then you drive over there in the evening in the summer and check his bean field, and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I got a landowner who's like this with turkeys. He's like, oh, he's just a big old dude. I'm like, all the turkeys are like the same, man. Like 23 to 25 pounds. I mean, not much size difference there.
Yeah, I seen him like 150.
No.
He looked thick as hell.
I know. Oh, man, it's the biggest turkey I've ever seen. I'm like, how big can it really be here?
Got a bunch
That's
of 30
funny.
pounders out there.
Yeah, I was like, what? So, one thing you had talked about is, kind of talking about burning up a spot. You kind of wait for a deer to show you some sort of pattern, or, at least let you know that he's in the area. And then you go in there and you throw a couple hunts, and it's almost like, that's almost the worst feeling, is like the last 10 minutes of a hunt or so, and you haven't had any action really, and you just can kind of feel that you're burning that spot up. And, that's a terrible feeling. And then I had a couple years ago, I had a buck that I was after, and he was kind of giving me the slip, and I kind of felt like I was in this same exact situation. And then 2 times I kind of felt like that throughout the year, and then lo and behold, both times the next morning after I'd do an evening hunt and I kind of got that feeling, the next morning he would daylight. Sunday evening after shotgun was over here in Illinois, second season, daylight. I'm like, after 18 people were out there just gangbanging the whole weekend, and the neighbors, I mean, it was war zone out there, daylight. I'm like, come on, man. Yeah. Of course, I had the day off. He was just kind of recouped for work and shit, and then daylight on cam. I'm like,
we had the same thing happen when we were trying to kill this buck called Chaos. I think he's like 5 or 6 for sure. He's just like a mid-140s 8-pointer, and we were just like, all right, we're going to kill him. He's mature, 3 years. We hunted that stand all day during shotgun season.
Yeah.
Just sitting there. And then the day after shotgun season, 2 hours in the daylight, he's 40 yards on the mobile cam. I'm like, you mug. I sat there for 3 days waiting. Not including the other hunts, but it just.
And don't you think sometimes, how many times have you had a gut feeling about something and didn't react to the gut feeling, and then the deer that you were after is on that camera at daylight hours? I think you got to follow those hunches, those gut feelings, and
multiple times last year.
It's happened to me too.
Yeah,
I would say, and that's something we've talked about, just keying in on more, because I mean, over the last 3-4 years that we've been hunting together, you're like, well, if we would have just went with our gut, and then here these last couple years we've done that. And I mean, we've had more encounters.
Yeah, we've had more encounters.
So that's what I just call kind of like the hunter instinct. Like, you just got a feeling, you don't know why, but you just need to get your ass over there.
Well, when we were talking about MRI too, like, to me, like, we were talking about the postseason and stuff like that, but once you get into season, that's when that your scouting is, the scouting's everything at that point. That's why, I can tell you this, that, years ago when, I got introduced to, to Andre and then the whole mobile, he's kind of the OG of mobile hunting, really. And when I got introduced to that style of hunting, I can tell you, like, I went from, having a few encounters, maybe an opportunity, maybe killing a buck here and there, to when I started getting mobile and hunting and, scouting and finding the freshest sign to get on and hanging and hunting. I mean, I was just like, that's when it all changed for me. That's when I went from, killing a good buck maybe every 3 years to killing a good buck everywhere or every year. And sometimes two in multiple states, just because I got so many more opportunities. And, did I miss one along the way? Yes. And they still haunt me in my dreams. And did I wound one along the way? Yeah, sure. I mean, that's just part of it. Anybody that ever says that they've never wounded one bow hunting, well, they haven't been at it long enough. It's going to happen to everybody, or you're going to miss one or whatever. It stinks. It's part of it. But those hunting that freshest sign and being able to understand, being able to tell the difference between fresh sign and just sign, because I think a lot of times guys hunt old sign.
Yeah, we struggle with that. We try to be upfront and honest on this podcast, and that's something that we struggle on quite a bit. It's like, okay, really good sign, looks fresh, but there's always that thing like, okay, is this, you got to break down the area. Is this like nocturnal sign? Was this, there was a hot doe in here 2 or 3 days ago and they made some sign? So it's really hard for us to go in there and be like, all right, this is today's sign.
Yeah, this is something we need to set up on.
Yeah, so we're always like really trying to break that down. And I feel like we just haven't hunted that style long enough to go in there and hunt that sign and then having the encounters to back up like, okay, this was hot sign. We've seen it happen. We had the encounter. Where now we're doing it and we're having a few encounters, but we're hunting sign. We're like, okay, we didn't have an encounter. We're going to chalk this up as, maybe this is an old sign, and try to break it down. But that's something we're trying to work on our game, because before we were, just the last 2 years, we kind of went mobile and been on public a lot more because of land restriction. Like I said, once you have a lease and you kind of have it figured out and you don't mess it up and other factors don't bother the deer are there. But when you gotta go in there and make stuff happen, that's when I think a guy has, it's just like you say, it goes back to that instinct where a guy walks in there and he goes, okay, this shit's on fire, I gotta set up.
Yeah,
we don't have that instinct yet to say this shit is really good, we need to set up. We're always like, man, we probably need to go over that ridge, or we need to go 100 yards deeper. And that's where I feel like our skill is at right now.
Yeah, we were actually making a midday move last year on vacation, and we come across some really, really good looking sign.
Best sign I've ever seen.
And really we had like a 10-minute conversation about what the hell we were going to do, because we're like, we had a plan where we had encounters about 400 yards away, but we were just set up about 80 yards and we didn't see anything all morning. And we're like, it could be better in the evening here if for the sign. And we're like, do you go back to just where you were? You just tore all your stands down and shit, loaded up, and now you're on the jaunt to the new spot for the evening, and you come across something, and just like Cody was saying, the uptake of that information is not there for us yet to be like, yeah, just go back to where you were. And ultimately we did make the move and didn't see anything up there, but
we went back to where we had an encounter with some bucks, and didn't end up seeing anything. And then you feel like a dumbass because you're like, man, I had all that sign down there and we just left it. We were hunting a brand new area that we'd never been into, just on a map, go in there and hunt. So it's, like I said, that's where we're lacking on the freshest sign.
And I think too that I used to be like really really cautious of this, because just of all the stuff that was out there for years. They didn't have all these, God, I wish they had all these podcasts back in the day when I was first got rolling into this or whatever. It would have been a huge learning curve, but of just moving deer around, and not being worried about bumping deer. I don't worry that much about bumping deer. Honestly, I don't really give a shit if I bump any deer. I'm going in there and if I got to move some deer around to get that information that I need, then so be it. And you know what? And if it was a good deer, he's going to come right back in there anyways, because he just slipped out and he never got hurt. He never got his, my buddy Andre has talked about this for years. I mean, you bumped him out of there, you shored up a spot, and he knows that he can escape from that that location, and he's gonna come back. I mean, he's proven that tactic on video on some world-class deer. And I've used that for a long time now, and it's held true. I mean, they bed in certain locations because they know how to escape from danger. And it's just not us, it could be, bobcats or coyotes or whatever it might be. I mean, they got predators after them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we're definitely marking down, we jump a buck out of a bed when we're kind of moving stands or scouting somewhere. Back in the day, I'm always feeling like, man, I messed up, and I'm like, God, now it's like, okay, jot that down. And we got a couple spots, like, the one where we jumped right past that hot sign where we jumped that buck. It's just like the most primo buck bedding spot you've seen in your life.
When you see a buck bedding there, it makes sense. You're like, well, yeah, a buck's in a bed there.
We looked at that. I'd be like, that's a really good spot for a buck to bed. And then boom, there's a real nice buck. And then we're like, okay, well, maybe I should listen. There comes a time where you're like, I got this. I listen to people talk and I go out there, but I think I know what I'm talking about, but I haven't seen the shit happen firsthand for me. So I just don't have the confidence to go in there, and do that. I feel like a lot of people listen to it, they go in there, and if they don't have a good hunt, then they're like, oh, this is bullshit. This don't work. But it's not like that. You got to burn some spots.
Yeah, it's almost like they just try to force it to happen because they've seen it or heard about it or,
Yeah.
I mean, that splat bed that you found could be, it could use that 4 times a year. You don't know. But if you jump one out of there, you're like, okay, there's been a buck in this bed. So if another buck comes in here, he's going to feel comfortable bedding there. And now we got that spot in our mind. Like, okay, we get in there in the morning, we got a damn good chance, I feel like, running into something solid. With all that sign there, the ag up there, coming off the ag, there's a really good spot.
Yeah, we just go south a little bit.
Yeah, set up there in that little pinch. It's like where the creek came out, and then there's like an 80-foot cliff. And then that cliff runs like 200 yards, and there's only like a 40, 50-yard gap we can get up to this flat. And then the field's maybe 150 yards away, and they're just right on that flat, right on that cliff. It's perfect, and in your mind you're like, yeah, that's perfect. But you don't think until I don't think I need to hunt that until I see, like, I get slapped in the face, like, here, look, this is correct. That's what I need. I need a roadmap.
And I think it's all situational too. It's all what time of year it is. And, sometimes, early season, a lot of times I like letting some things develop a little bit. A lot of times I don't, just depending, on the property itself. If I got some room to roam, maybe I'm a little more aggressive. If I don't have a whole lot of room, then maybe I, just kind of, work the edges a little bit and, try to kill them out there or whatever. But as October goes on and we're starting to get into late October, then that's when I know that I got to kind of change things up. I go from, hunting at the right times and trying to work my way in. And then as you get to late October, it's like, okay, now this deer could be God knows who, God knows where, once a doe comes in or whatever, and he could just start, doing his travels. And then then I'm going to, the rut's really frustrating to me. Don't get me wrong. I've shot bucks in November, and I've killed some nice deer then. But most of my bucks have either come early season or late season, and just because you can actually pattern them, you can actually figure out what they're doing. And the rut's a crapshoot. The rut pisses me off half the time because you're after one particular deer and he's like, oh, there he is over there. He came out over here. So then I make a move and then he comes out over there. And then it's like, it's a crapshoot. I've had a big deer that I was hunting a few years ago, and it was during the rut, and it was a blast that week, but it was also so frustrating because the first time I seen the deer, he comes out at 80 yards and just was bumping does all over the place and everything else, and literally went right down to a point where I was gonna hang a set. Instead, I hung my set down on another side. Then the next morning, I went and jumped in on him, and then he comes out on another side, pushing a doe. Then he pushed a doe down into this one corner. Well, then the next morning I slid back in, and we're talking, he's probably 180-inch typical, just a big 5x5. And I didn't want to press down there because I felt like he was probably with that doe bedded down there. And I had two small bucks, and they dumped down in there first thing in the morning. And I was just sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, I wonder if he's in there with that doe right now. Well, it was like probably 10 seconds later, the doe bust out, the two small bucks bust out, and here he comes running after them. And they're just running, just going crazy, running all over the place. They dump down, and then it all got quiet for 10 minutes. And then all of a sudden I look off to my right, and here comes that doe. And she comes busting out of there. Here comes those two small bucks. And they run by at like 15 yards, and I know he's coming. So I just draw. And here he comes, and he comes running out there, and I could not get that deer stopped for nothing.
Yeah.
I yelled at him, hey, nothing. Couldn't, I was everything I couldn't get him stopped. Then it was the next day. We had a big like ice and snowstorm, and it was just shitty. I shouldn't have been in that tree. Because by the time I got down, it was just covered in ice, the whole thing. And we had a bunch of high winds, and he came out, and it was probably between 40 and 50 yards. But because of those high winds and all that, rain and snow and sleet blowing in my face or whatever, I just never felt comfortable with the shot. I just thought, well, you know what? He's right. I've seen him 4 times now. I'm going to kill this deer. It's just a matter. And I never did. And that's the frustrating part about the rut, because I feel like if it was early season or late season, I'd have figured out where he's coming out consistently or going back in, and I would have got my crack because I would have been able to get close enough. That rut is just it's just a crapshoot. You just got to have some luck to go your way.
If you're targeting, it's bad. But if you're just looking for a good one, that's when you strike,
Oh, for sure. And don't get me wrong, I killed a buck in Iowa this year. That's what he was cruising, I hung a set and, got in it and shot that deer in the freaking pouring rain.
Yeah, definitely challenging. Like I said, I've killed a couple in October, and that's something we always talk about. Man, we gotta find them and get on them in October. And we worked hard at it last year, but all the stuff we did last year is, will help us this year because we know where not to look now. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, but
I definitely want to have you on again, like we talked about, closer to season, and I want to break down, the mobile trail cams in the early season and really dive deep in a lot of the tactics that you're using and how you're setting up on these deer, how close. So listeners can be excited for that. But to kind of finish us off here, I wanted to start doing something like a life lesson. It could be hunting related, it could be work or whatever. So what do you got for our listeners if you could give them one piece of knowledge that might help them out?
And I've said this before, that I think one of the things that is always going to help you just be a better hunter is you have to get uncomfortable and you have to get out of your comfort zone. And if you just stay comfortable all the time in that cozy little spot and you're still not having that success, I think that you need to get uncomfortable, do some things that you typically wouldn't do, and take some chances.
Man, that would hit hard. That's exactly that. I needed to hear that.
That was just for you.
Yeah, that was just for me, I think. You're just so comfortable with killing, and then when like in your mind, you're not like, I'm gonna lose 3 pieces. That's gonna happen. But then it happens, and you're like, shit. Now, and you lose those 3-4 years. You could have been honing that skill, and now you're 3-4 years behind. So, and the only way to learn is to get uncomfortable and mess up, just like starting over when you first started hunting. You know, so
I've messed up a ton.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I probably honestly I think about the deer that I've screwed up on more than the ones I've ever shot, and those are the ones that I still think about. A Big Ten with double drops that I just screwed the pooch on.
I've screwed the pooch on some absolute mega giants in my life. God. I don't know. Yeah.
But that's what's going to make you better, too.
Yeah. Snort wheezing on big deer. Some reason. The big 8, that was the 183-8 that the neighbor shot.
Yeah.
Snort wheezed at him.
Gone.
He was like, nope, 60 yards, thick cover. I was like, he could see where I was at. I was like, he can't see me. I stopped him. Snort wheezed at him. Nothing. I'm like, then last year, got a 190 out there, aggressive as hell all last year, aggressive on trail camera, aggressive on the scrapes, snort wheeze at him, nothing. I'm like, all right, snort wheeze, never doing that again in my life. If I'm with someone, I'm going to be like, hey, snort wheeze, so I can blame it on you if this sucker runs away. So, all right, well, we appreciate your time, appreciate you coming on, and I know the listeners are going to get a lot of value from this. And like I said, we want to have you back on for later in the season when more people are amped up about whitetails, because it's just the people that are listening now are the diehards, and then around October, November, you get a flood of people that are like, oh crap, deer season's coming, I need to get some knowledge, you know. So definitely be able to hit them and give them some tidbits.
I appreciate you guys having me on. I wish I was. I was so worried about working on my basement over here. Like when I was like, oh shit, I need to get in there and get ready, because these guys are probably ready to go. And I was putting away my finish nailer and doing all this kind of stuff and come rushing in. So I wasn't prepared that well, I guess.
And what were we?
Yeah, not prepared at all. We get this guy on the line, and we got nothing set up. Homie's throwing cords and crap around. I'm setting stuff up, talking. That's just our style, too. When you have jobs and kids and try to do this kind of stuff, it's hard. So, like I said, we appreciate you taking the time out of your night. But we'll end her here. All right, man. They don't get much better for whitetail tactics. I mean, that episode, absolutely loved it. Can't wait to have them on again and really break down in some more details. We're kind of restricted on time because I got to go to work like right after I get done recording this. So we're kind of restricted on time to be able to have them come on and really rip on us. Mm-hmm. We need to have them on like an hour, 30-minute podcast, really breaking down what we got going on with the MRI, with the mobile cams, because his mobile cam game is off the charts, and that's how he's killing these deer. So really excited to do that.
He did bring up a good idea. He said we need to get him and Heath in here on a podcast, and I know Heath listens.
Yeah.
So
Heath, we need to make.
We're gonna make that happen, Heath.
Yeah, we've had you on a couple times, and huge respect to you. It'd be cool to.
And we'll be able to see your face.
Actually see your face and talk on the video like we did with Justin. So I'm excited for that. And listeners, if we can make that happen, that is
going to be
two
a
legendary OGs.
That might be a 2-parter.
Yeah, that was just hella whitetail killing knowledge. So.
Yeah.
All right, guys, like we always say, try to do the right thing, leave a legacy, and Whitetail Legacy is out.